It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh, and I'm the guy they call Smoker Broker. And that is absolutely evident when we're in May because we start barbecuing again every once in a while. Everybody always thinks that sometimes like I get that I run a barbecue place or that I am in these competitions like every week. That is not true. In fact, I'm lucky if I get 3 or 4 in every year. But we did do our big one last weekend, and it turned out very well. Very well. We actually won the category that we enjoy most, which is the wild game category. So I get that Smoker Broker thing from doing barbecue every once in a while and doing the real estate too. Love both of them. They consume a ton of my life. So always a good time. My buddy Brent there, he joined me. It was nice to
I got to see
down.
him.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was fun to see you in your element. Like when people would
Well,
come
I
up
gotta tell you, I
and say, "Are you the
appreciate you
Smoker Broker?" and you would be like, "Who are you?" and you were so condescending to everyone around you. Like you're like, "Do you know who I am?" It was really weird, but
Not true.
that's not true.
Yeah, I'm no different than anybody else working those damn things in there. But I'm glad you got to go because you did get to see what it's like, and it's hectic. You know, you're running back and forth, and you have to be almost perfect for those things to work out. So that was great that you got to see one like that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they're all the same. I mean, they all the prep and the actual competitions themselves, they're all very similar. So you actually saw what happens even in the biggest ones, the largest state and world championships is very similar. So that was a good one for you to get to go to. Plus, you finally got good weather in Galveston. That does not happen very often.
That's true. And I actually got to try your wild game, your venison, and
that's great. So I meant to ask you, did you get a piece of that?
I did. Remember, my son ate most of it, though.
Oh, that's right. He did. Well, so I remember that. And that was a very good sign. I know I joked about it when I saw him devouring it. But I on a serious point, I was like, if that kid's eating that like that, that means the seasoning is very good because he would not have liked that with a venison cut the way it was in there. So that was actually a very good sign that we had done well. And that was very serious too.
Mother's cooking.
What's that?
Maybe you don't know who his mother's cooking.
I love it. So yeah, I'm in a little bit of a busy stretch there. I don't travel very often because of real estate, and May is really tough for me because I literally jammed 3 trips inside of a 3-week time frame. But that's what's great about real estate too. You can constantly work. We still negotiate. I do everything I normally do. I'm just a little bit slower during those couple of days. But just flew in from Atlanta. Like literally, I barely made it in here 5 minutes ago. Dropped my suitcase off, all the stuff in there. Came straight in here to do this, and then I've got interviews after that. So it's like it just keeps going. The flow just keeps on going. And then we do Kansas City next weekend for a few days, and then I'm back. Probably what I guess just for the summer. Minus taking the family somewhere. So try to get it all out in one swing and continue to deal with this real estate market. Interesting being in Atlanta this past week. Atlanta and Dallas, very similar real estate markets. In fact, very similar suburb areas. The difference really primarily is in the fact that Dallas is flat and you can see forever. In Atlanta, it's just hills and a lot of trees. But the suburbs are very similar. The infrastructure is very similar. And
traffic's way worse there, though.
What's that?
The traffic's way worse there.
It is. And, I think if COVID still hadn't controlled some of it, that would have made it for a lot more miserable of a week driving back and forth through there because they, unlike Dallas, are really behind on some of the roads. Dallas is, I mean, all major suburbs are in constantly behind in putting the roads up, but Atlanta, those northern hubs don't have near the roads they should.
Well, and they don't have room to expand the roads either. I mean, there's
They
buildings
don't.
right on it, and they
That's
at least did a
right.
pretty good job, I think, in the Metroplex of having room to expand.
The buildings are all right on it. The excessive amount of trees that are through there and a lot of the waterways they have make it very difficult to turn it in. Unfortunately, some of the areas where you probably could do that, that's not where the growth is. So you've got like 60% of the Metroplex, like bam, living on the top end there, and it makes it tough. Then they take the stadiums and they put the stadiums on the north side. So that was just, I'm like, oh, like they needed any more
Land was
attention
cheap
up here. But it was interesting because I was looking through some of the houses. I don't go anywhere where I don't look at the market and compare. It's amazing some of their houses, they do tend to sell a little higher than we do.
Mm-hmm.
There were several 2,300 square feet houses that I was in this week that literally would have sold for probably $500,000 or $600,000. And I was like, wow. I go, that is like really high for that size of a house, not even upgraded. Just that. And I was like, that's just really, really high. So I was interested. They're having the same troubles that we do, as most of the country is, that the house can be sold within a matter of minutes. But as far as buying, you're pretty much stuck. They too are facing a issue with the apartment vacancies or no vacancies, because they're just starting to build up because people are having to do that before they go and purchase a home. So very similar instances that we're going through, similar conversations. Our primary company, Keller Williams, is very big there. In fact, that is one of their most profitable areas is in Atlanta. So they too rise with the growth. They have a lot of locations out that way. So it's very interesting to see how the two operate. It's also interesting, just for the real estate academic side, they were talking to me about the differences. And one of the differences came up between Georgia and Texas real estate. Georgia has a 2-week rescission period where you can actually, 2 weeks you have before a contract's live.
Oh,
So you can draft the contract and it's for 2 weeks that you can actually pull it. I'm like, how does anything get done with that then?
right, a rescission? That's awful.
Yeah. Doesn't everybody just like do that first? And if they don't do it, they back it. They have like, that's what they're going to call their option period, but they combine it all together. So I was trying to get my hands on how that worked, and I didn't like it. I was like, that's kind of strange. So every state has different tendencies as to how they do real estate. I was talking to a friend of mine, and his girlfriend's in real estate, and she was talking about something that I knew, where she goes, well, yeah, here she goes, you only have to have like 60 hours of classes, and they give you your certificate the next day. I was like, that is not how they do it here. And because a lot of our the primary audience that we have is in the state of Texas, that's something that you guys should be I don't know so much is proud of, but very confident in the fact that we do consider you have to go through the most rigorous real estate courses to get your license in the state of Texas. We do believe, because of the education that the agents have to go through, that they probably should be a little more educated than most of the other states out there, because most of the states are very similar. It literally is come here for a couple of days, show up on Monday, and you've got a real estate license, which is why real estate probably gets a bad name sometimes, because you just let people start selling real estate and they really probably are not prepared to sell real estate. We talk about that a lot as far as the experience goes. And, you can have 3 or 4 years under your belt. Now, don't take any offense to it, but most people under 5 years, they still have a long way to go from an experience standpoint. That doesn't mean they're not good and they're not capable and they're not performing a lot better than their peers. But bottom line is they still haven't seen a lot of what happens in the real estate world. So real estate, one of the true traditional businesses that you do still need the experience to really be comfortable and confident in
But
what you're doing. And
experience does not mean you're always competent. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that's why Brent and I run this thing the way we do, is that it's we know that, and that's why we review the stuff with our agents so they have the same amount of time to or get the same amount of experience even though they don't have it. And that's why we always put that stuff at joinswr.com out there. We're always telling everybody, hey, look, you should really consider that if you need that type of help. And that's why we have a good support group with the company that we run. We, a couple of weeks ago, were talking about the listing presentation, and I think we got through like almost halfway, and the conversation was really good. And I said, well, we're just going to continue it. And I don't want to wait for a long amount of time. I don't like usually backing up two subjects, so close, but we actually had a break last week, so it worked out well that we just go ahead and start continuing where we left off. And Brent, if I'm not mistaken, we got to where we were right at expectations. Had we started talking?
Yeah,
about
we had just began to talk about setting expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And
did we talk about anything about marketing and what we do and all that type of stuff yet?
No.
All right, let's do that one first. Let's do marketing, then we'll do the expectations. So, well, actually, should we do it the other way? All right, no, we have to do expectations because the marketing side is part of the expectations that we're going to tell them what we're going to do. So we'll do both of those there. All right, so in our first show that we had a couple weeks ago, we started talking about how we got to this point of the listing, what we did before, running the comps, doing CMAs, and then we talked about how that was the first presentation of what we're going to show them. We talked about how we really don't want to disclose the price just yet because we still have a lot of other things that we're going to discuss with them, but we want them to start getting the idea as to where we're heading. We talked a lot about the nonverbal side and observance of somebody when you're going through comps, because their attitude and their emotions could tell you what they think and how they're feeling about what you're about to tell them. And if you have that knowledge, it could give you an edge as you get close to the end and you start talking about price. It lets your conversation be more, I was going to say more smooth, but I was looking more for a more competent way, because you know what they're probably thinking and you can adjust your conversation accordingly to try to ease that truth in as best you can. Because if you do the right job and you explain the listing presentation, the process correctly, no matter what they think it's worth, they should agree with what you told them if you did what you were supposed to do.
I had a first the other day. I had a first the other day. You'd be impressed. I did a listing presentation and I walked. I usually do it live. I do comps live in front of them, and I said, I think based on this, we should list at 350. And he smiled and he goes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh, that's never happened.
It doesn't happen often. Well, so look, in defense of me, you know why you probably got that? Because this is the first market we've ever been in where they actually, for once, are getting what the hell they think they're going to get.
We go higher than they expected.
A sign that we should finally get someone to go, that's exactly what I was thinking. So that's funny. I love it. I hadn't thought about that, but I guess there should be more parallels to people saying, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I want, or that's exactly what I hope I'm going to get. So we're out there and we got through all that side of it. And then we started getting into the expectation side. And that was another show in itself. So we decided to roll it into this one. And expectations and the marketing. So when we do it, we have the CMA side, we have the introduction side, and then we start talking about what we'll do and what they can expect from us. And then we start breaking into the cost of the actual, what's it going to cost for this listing. So we're going to kind of finish that up today and talk about listings because they are important, certainly modified, but giving you the idea of what it is that we're doing. So when you're in that listing and you've gotten past the first wave of values and stuff, now it's time to start selling yourself as to why should they choose you versus somebody else. I've said on many shows, and it's there's no secret that I don't like being called a salesperson. I don't think that's what we do. I think that we're here to help people. But I have to admit, the closest we're going to become to being a salesperson is when we're throwing a pitch as to why they should use us, because we are, in fact, selling ourselves. And as much as I hate that, it's a part of the job, and we have to do it. So, Brent, when we go in and we have finally got to where we sit at the table, although we really hadn't sat at the table in a while. It's been a lot of virtual and stuff. But when we get there, what's our primary goal? Well, I know what our primary, outside the obvious of getting the listing, what is it we're trying to establish with them when we sit down? What is it that we want them to think about us?
Well,
right when we sit down and start talking.
Yeah, we're highly experienced, very competent, and an expert at what we do.
That's right. That's right, because first impressions are important, and we want them to acknowledge that we're worth listening to when we're in front of them. Now, here's a good takeaway from the show today, especially with a lot of the new people that watch. It's very hard when you're new to get that type of respect when you sit down, because undoubtedly you're going to do something that made you look new, or you just weren't as polished as you probably should have been. And there's nothing that makes that any easier for you except practicing constantly on what the scenarios are. One of the biggest failures of a lot of real estate agents, especially that are under 3 years and have not listed a lot of houses, is they don't practice. They think that the only time they do a listing presentation or a listing appointment is when they actually do one. Well, in your first couple of years, you don't have many. So if you don't have many, you can't practice. And I don't think there's anybody that's successful in any realm of business or any athletics or sport, whatever, that won't tell you practice is everything.
We talk about practice.
Practice, that's right. Practice. What did is it John Wood?
That was Iverson.
Who's the old? I know that. Who's the old UCLA? It was John Wooden.
Yeah.
John Wooden was always famous for you practice like you play, or you play like you write, whatever. Vice versa, because he knew. And those of you who don't know John Wooden, he's the guy that basically won as many college basketball games as you could in a row, and nobody's even come close to doing that since. And his belief was because you practice all the time, and you practice seriously and you take it serious. Well, the same thing goes for real estate agents. When you're doing that listing presentation, your first go at a listing presentation should not be live. You damn well should have practiced. And as stupid as it sounds and as corny as it sounds, probably should have been in front of the mirror until you did it enough to where you acknowledged this sounded good or it didn't sound good, and I need to work on this or that, okay? So that's a good takeaway for someone who's new, that you have to be really polished. For someone who's really not polished yet, you need to put some work in before you get to that point, because you really do have about 50 to 90 seconds for them to be listening to you, whether they're going to continue to listen or not, okay? Especially if your comps were not as great as they thought, you have to be even better.
Yep.
Because now you're really having to get them off the ledge and be ready for them. So we're working on that. We're polishing it. So we present to them. We're getting in there. Brent, what do we do when we start presenting? Let's mix the expectation and the marketing together. When we start talking to them, they already know the comps. They know why we're here. What is it that we want to start doing that's going to distinguish ourselves from the average agent? Try to be general at first, not so Keller Williams specific, because we have a lot of people that aren't just Keller Williams, and then we'll actually do our spiel so people can see it too. So give them a little bit of an idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the number one thing they want is their house to sell for as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, and now on their terms, right? They're going to want to get everything, and it's going to be a little different because any listing agent should be able to get a house sold now. I mean, regardless of competence level. So the question is, why should they choose you over someone who would maybe do it for 1% or something like that? Why would they bother with you? And what you have to do is be able to show them that through your expertise, you can get them more money, you can get them lease backs, you can get them additional assurity that their house will close, and if the contract falls through, they're actually going to be heavily compensated for that. And so an agent that's not as experienced will not be able to provide that for them.
Yeah. We're trying to have a separation gap between what we think might be coming in there. And you have to know your competition. And we always preach on the show that we're very polite and goodwilled to our competition, even though they might not always be. We are. And that's a good takeaway from the show. You should be professional about your competition. Believe it or not, the owner does not want to hear you trash another professional. It's actually one of the good things in business today. And there's not many good things, but one of the good things is that there are some people that still believe that you should be professional in front of somebody else when you're talking about someone else in your peer. Might even win you the listing when you're like that, because they think that you have a professional level and that's how you deal with everybody, which you do if you're doing that. So you want to mention that they're out there. You want to tell them what it is that they're doing, but it's not like we're downplaying what they're doing. But we're certainly making the point that what we're doing, we think it's going to be a better alternative for you. And we want them to have that opinion. All right. So that's what we're really trying to achieve. Brent, be more technical with the takeaway for a lot of the agents out there right now should be, am I dealing with somebody who wants a discount, or am I dealing with somebody who just wants the best? And you hinted at it, but be more specific when we go in and there are signals that are telling us this person is ready for us to discount this listing, or they just point blank say, I've already talked to somebody else and they're going to do this for me. Go both sides with it. Go defending it, and the other side where you're okay with it.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this actually happened to me with my first listing after we switched to Keller Williams. I came in, we had a brand new listing presentation. I rehearsed it. It's like 20 pages thick. I had all my comps. These were strangers. I never met these people. And so I walk in, take a tour of the house, and I sit down. And I start my spiel. The owner says, look, I'm going to stop you right there. Before you go any further, what's the cheapest you can list my house at? Yeah. And I mean, what an objection, right? And that's something that it threw me for a little bit. But like a new agent, if you're not prepared for that and you don't have a script, it's really going to throw you off. So if you've got, everybody would like a discount. That's a fact, right? Everyone would like to earn as much money as possible. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But then you also have to look at, okay, well, maybe if you get somebody that's willing to do it for a heavy discount, are they going to end up netting you the most amount of money in the end and making your life easy? Because we know selling your house sucks. That's how Zillow and Open Door make tons of money, because they market and they prey upon that idea that selling your house sucks. So if you want someone to take care of it, get you the most possible, and just make life easy, then you're going to want to go for a full service agent. If you just want to sell quickly, you don't care about any of that stuff, but you just somehow are opposed to paying a 3% commission, then you're going to want to go with a discount broker, but just, buyer beware.
So I'll give you a few things that I've learned over the years that I found to be true, or for the most part true. And it took me a while to learn this. This is a good takeaway too for a lot of you out there that watch, especially via archive or watch later in the week. In some neighborhoods, you might not want to say that you discount, because in some neighborhoods, they might take that as hang on, we've got a pretty big asset here. We're ready to get this thing sold. We're not looking for, so you gotta be careful who you're talking to.
That's when you say, oh, I was going to do from 8% to 7%, but I guess we'll go ahead and go up to the 8 then.
Yeah. You've got to balance who it is that you're talking with, because sometimes that could be harmful with that particular person. That might not be what it wants. This is also an interesting phenomenon that took me the longest time to figure out. And I still am kind of surprised by it. When you start getting to where you list luxury homes, we always teach people, look, the higher you go, it's getting a little harder for you. You really want to be more reasonable. And it took me years to figure out, you have to be careful at the $1 million mark. Sometimes listing a house at $990 might be harmful than listing it at 1.1. And I'll tell you why too, because you would be like, I don't understand. And there's a lot of people out there who are very proper as far as egos and where they think their house should sell. And there's something about that $1 million price point that if you go under it, makes someone feel a little less appreciated, that maybe they're not in $1 million home. That took me years to believe, because you would think that, the lower the better for someone and getting the household. And don't get me wrong, believe me, there are times that that's necessary. But I can promise you for a fact, there have been many times that I had a seller say, don't put it below $1 million. I'm like, why? They go, just don't. And I've had many buyers that have said, I don't want to see anything under $1 million. So that's something a lot of people don't know. That's a good takeaway from today, especially if you're new. You probably don't know that until you experience it a few times and, people talk about it. But there's some truth to that. So that's interesting as well. Brent's right about, we teach you the obvious, that you should certainly seek what you are worth. And we believe that that worth is a 3% to both sides, because we know the amount of work that goes into it. If you ask the general public, they don't think we do a damn thing. You're just like, whatever, I don't have enough time in the day to explain that to you.
Some don't.
But we know, we know as the brokerage side of it, we know what goes into it. Just a quick little off script there for anybody who ever has to deal with a seller that's of that belief that they're like, you're not going to do anything. Why would I pay you this? One of the greatest comebacks to any seller that says that is, do you have any idea how many phone calls and text and emails will have been exhausted by the time we're done with this? And you ask them that, they're not going to answer the right answer. They're going to answer something silly like, I don't know, 30 or 40. And when they say that, you just look at them and go, try closer to 600 or 700. And guess who is the one that has to do that? It ain't you. I go, so if you want to tell me that it's easy and that anybody can do it and that they shouldn't pay as much, then you better be prepared to answer those phone calls, those emails, all the way through the process. And that goes for the inspections, the appraisals, the financing, the closing. You better be skilled at every step of the way. Because when someone says that, I will admit, that's still something with the general public. It does hurt me when someone goes, oh, I don't know why they're paid that much. I'm like, because you don't know. You don't know what it is that we do. In fact, you don't have the faintest idea. And if you come back at me and you say, well, I'll take the 700 calls, I'm like, well, what do you do for a living then? Because if you took the 700 calls, what the hell are you doing, in the other amount of time? So those people that say that, I'm like, yeah, you can come on the show any day and talk to me about how easy it is to sell the house. So we believe that the agent should always get that 3% on both sides. With that said, no matter what we do, no matter the expertise we give, we are always going to come across someone that says, I want a discount. And Brent's
it's negotiable.
Yeah, it's negotiable. And by the way, that's a takeaway too. Don't you ever say that we charge 6%. That's how we do this. It's a set rate. First of all, it's against the law to do that. And you can say your firm has a policy that they charge 6% as long as it's true. But for you to say the industry as a whole, that's not true. There is no such thing as an average commission. It is a myth to say the average agent charges 6%. It's not true. It's negotiable, and we have to go through it. And yes, at times, if we feel we've gone through, explained our worth, and we still have someone that says they want a discount and they're not going to go with us if we don't, then we do teach the agents at some point to have some type of gratuitous nature to the person saying, look, I probably can do this for you. Okay. Show's not long enough to discuss it, but some agents get into where, well, you tell me what you want then. You know, that's fine if you want a discount, but if that's the case, I'm not going to load this house with, you know, $1,000 worth of marketing. I would hope you wouldn't want me to do that if I'm having to push back on it. You know, I mean, how many times do you want me to send updates to you? I see some agents do that. Now, I don't believe in that. I do the full deal either way. If I decide I'm going to do the job, I'm going to do it the way I'm supposed to do it. But I do find merit in those agents that are hammered all the time with discount clients. I don't have a problem with them saying, that's fine, but I want this to be a two-way street. If I'm going to do that, I hope you don't have, and that's why we merge these conversations, I hope you don't have the expectation that I'm going to do this, this, and this. And most of the time, the person who wants the discount, they actually are negotiable on that end too. They're like, I get it, and that's what I want done. Still the wrong way to do it, but it is negotiable. And honestly, it is the toughest. It probably is the toughest decision we have to make. Is, are we prepared to lose a listing because of the commission? It's probably the hardest thing we do. I can tell you, when you're new, most people when they're new, they'll do whatever they can to get a listing.
Well, it's funny if you look at that story I told you where the guy asked for the cheapest I can go, and I worked my way around it and refused to go under 3. I found out later that was the reason they went with me, because I would stick by my guns, and they were like, you know, if you're going to fight that hard for us or for yourself, how hard are you going to fight for us later?
For everyone you lose, there's another side of that. I mean, for everyone you lose where you stick to that script, the other side should see. And look, if your common sense should dictate that exact statement you made. Like, I would say that, and then if they still object, go, hey, I just want you to know, if I'm sticking to the fact that I charge that, you better damn well believe I'm the same way the other way around when I'm negotiating for you. And my guess is I can save a lot more money that way than this way. If the person's intelligent on the other end, they should pick up on that. At least one, you hope, is intelligent enough to say, I don't like the way he said that. That means to me that he knows exactly what he's talking about, and maybe we should do it this way. You and your stupid discounts, you know? So I like that. I do. And that's a hard part, where we decide, where we draw the line. You know, some of your firms will, they already answer it for you. They say you can't do it. They say you have to do 6. I think that's tough. My opinion. Never go against another broker. I'm like, that's a tough road to follow, where you always are like that. And it's I'm all for defending our worth. God knows what I just said should be a very good statement for that and testimony to that. But I'm also of the belief that it's still business. And you know, sometimes somebody will ask me, why did you discount? And I'm like, because I can add. I go, you know, and 2% is better than 0%. It's just basic math. Even an Albicus could have told me that maybe I should do that versus, you know. So it's a tough one. There's a lot of brokers, they would disagree on the how do we teach, how far you go. I've always felt that we do a good job because we do teach the agent to press their worth. And we do teach them to try as hard as they can to get what we think they should charge. But they're also trained, and we talked about some of those last 2 weeks ago. There are signals that are telling us during the presentation, we know we're not going to get that. And if we see those signals, we can adjust our conversation that we were acting like we're already going to do it anyways. And that's why that's important. That's why this all flows together. You know, it sounds like a lot of babbling, but if you're paying really close attention, we're going through all the objections and obstacles, and we're putting them in line for you so that each part of the process, you can see it and go, wait, I'm starting to lose this. That person does not want me to say 6% in a minute. So I need to be ready to adjust. And that's going to be the prelude to the end of the show. Here in a minute, we're going to talk about net sheets. That's why you also, when you do a net sheet, you do not want to put in stone what you think the house is worth and what you're going to charge for it, because you damn well might change those variables if you're observing all the things we're talking to about at the point we get there. Okay.
Well, like I said, last episode is when I'm filling out the net sheet. I usually fill it out on my side, and I tell them, if you sell for blank, this is approximately what you should walk away with before I show them the sheet, which shows the breakdown of the commissions. So they already have that number in their head, and then they see the commissions. But if you go line by line,
if they don't object to it, you can give it to them.
Yep.
Right. So that's good. All right. What are some of the other basic expectations, Brent? But let's say that let's do the, hey, once we know we're going to get this is what you can expect from us. Talk to them about what the grind looks like for the week to week, what they can expect us to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, we're going to go get professional pictures taken. We're going to make the house looking really good. We're going to give you advice on how you should stage the home, how to make the house more attractive. We're going to put it on the MLS. We're going to populate that to all the websites out there. We're going to take out, do a paid social media campaign on the house. We're going to market it in-house to our brokerage, pre-listing, just to see if there's any bites that we can get that way. We're going to have 24/7 communication with them whenever they need. We're only a phone call or a text away. We're going to get back to them at a minimum of once a week with updates, and that we're going to be negotiating 100% on their behalf with the other agents, handling with title company, coordinating with the buyer's lender, and everything to make sure that the transaction is as smooth as possible.
Yeah, that's why he's a pro. He knows. There's really nothing he missed. I'm going to emphasize a couple just a little deeper than he did because they're really important, but he knows them and he had them on there. Good takeaway from the show today. If you want to differentiate yourself from another agent, you have to press your social media. Those people know that social media is where those houses are sold. You have to show them that you understand what it is and that you not only know what it is, you know how to use it better than the average person or agent. And the way you do that is just like Brent said, we're going to run some promos on that. You tell them what those promos are. Tell them what it is that you're doing. Tell them how many people we reach. Tell them that we have programs that are paid to do that get the attraction to that property. The person who doesn't do that in the listing, they're in a lot of trouble. There are a few things that I say you can immediately lose in listing on. That has come into that box recently that I think if you don't push that and you don't know what that answer is, you're going to have a hard time. I still have agents to this day that come on and say, I don't like the social media. I'm like, I don't either. But that doesn't change the conversation that you better learn it. Yeah, and I don't usually list ultimatums on the show. But I'm telling you right now, if you don't know what you're doing with social media, you're not active on it, and you're a real estate agent, good luck. Because whatever else you're doing, it better be something damn impressive because it is very hard to get the attention you need and get the power you need when you're doing a listing without that social media presence. Even those of you who are, that. So this is the other problem. Some of you know it. Some of you will not dispute what I just said, but you still don't do it. Mm-hmm. You've got to learn the social media side. Your team lead should be able to show you how to do it. And if that's not enough, you should pay a social media consultant. We do all the time. Mm-hmm. Best money we spend. We have to have someone that knows that stuff. So those are good takeaways from the show. The other one Brent mentioned that's really powerful. Brent, were you say something?
Well, I was just going to say, maybe I'm jumping around, but I think one of the ways that you can win or lose a listing presentation is based on your body language and just your persona as you walk the house. When you're new, you're kind of letting the owner show you around, and you're not asking many questions, and you just seem new. I don't know how to say it, but you look like you're inexperienced. And as you get more experience, there's two ways you can do it. You can be a little bit more professional and almost discriminating, like looking at things in the house, or you can be more like we are, more laid back. You're able to answer any questions given to you, and that inspires confidence amongst the sellers, and they're more likely not going to ask you for a discount when they know you really know what you're doing.
So I'm going to make a comment. I don't like it. I hate this because I'm not and it's a controversial one because everybody differs with this one. And
Careful, Mark. Get ready with the delay.
I have friends that differ with this opinion, but it doesn't mean I'm against their opinion. It means that this is just mine. Okay. Athletics are tough. When Dean and I grew up, you wouldn't be able to tell. We were both very good athletic, good state champion. Well, at least me, not Dean is fine, but the state champions and very good athletics, very competitive.
At the Nathan hot dog eating competition. There's a lot of people that will argue.
There's a lot of people that will argue that that's a good way for your children to be raised because it teaches teamwork, winning, losing, and all that type of stuff. And there's no doubt there's truth to that. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. There are millions of other things that kids can do that are not athletics that teach the same type of principles. And that's where I usually differ with somebody when they go, those kids should be doing something. I'm like, well, it depends. It depends what their interests are. You know, athletics are not the only way to teach the kid to be a winner, to be, competitive, smart, win, lose. There are other ways, right? Now, the reason why I say that is because I do believe that way. I had to change. I used to believe it was the other way. And then I had to change because I saw too many things and I read too many things that made me believe that's not necessarily true. But one thing that Brent said in there that spoke to me, and it is from the same conversation about athletics. You're taught in almost every sport, especially the big ones, that if someone starts bowing their head, that you've got them. Because it's showing a sign that they are down on themselves and they know that they are not playing to their potential. They know by sulking like that they have already done something wrong that might have cost them the victory, or they already know in their mind they're heading that way. And what he just said is exactly right. The seller can see the same thing. Your body language is bleeding what you feel. And if they start sensing that you're nervous, you're not confident, you don't know what you're doing, or you're just not, you haven't done it long enough, that they're going to change their mind about you pretty quick. So I love that comment because it's true. Anytime you start sulking your head, watch anybody who's good at anything, even the best of the best. Watch it at their low points. Their low points are when they lose. John McEnroe is the best. McEnroe is great because when he started that, he's done. When he starts becoming a head case, he's done.
Yep.
And he was the best at it. He was the best at being talented and outstanding. But when he got that way, you watch every match that he ever played. When he started getting like that, it all just fell apart. Maybe there's a couple of exceptions. But when someone does that, the other person's like, got him now. He's sitting there talking to himself. It's the same thing here. So I love that comment. It's a really, really good comment that you brought in. Probably one of the best takeaways of the show today is your persona and your outgoingness and your confidence when you're going through the expectations. So look, we can sit here and talk about expectations for another 5 or 6 hours. Y'all get the point. I think the only thing, Brent did mention it. That's the only thing that I was going to say a little more extensive. When you talked about communication and week by week, what we're saying is that they should never have to hear information from anybody else but us. If they hear it from somebody else, that means we're not doing our job. So one of the most important pieces of the job that we do is to make sure we're giving them the information. They should never hear from somebody else that something happened to another house that was similar to them. I also talk about this a lot, and it's in this particular section where I always hear people, even friends sometimes, talk about, I'm going to fire the agent. And I always find that comical because I want to be like, well, why are you firing the agent? Now, this isn't applicable to today because most of the time you fire an agent because they didn't sell your house. Well, that just doesn't happen right now. And we also talked about this the other day. This is where I am a tad worried about the industry because we have over 4 or 5 years of agents that have not had to perfect their dog fighting skills when they have objections with the seller that they're not selling a house. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and this is a lost art. Well, when you start getting into that and the seller says, I'm going to fire someone, I always found that comical because my first question is, well, why are you doing that? And the answer always is, well, the house just didn't sell. And it's upsetting when I hear that. I'm like, that's not why that agent should be fired. I really only believe, it's an opinion, but hopefully mine's merited after doing this for so long. I really think the number one reason that an agent should be fired is their lack of communication. Yep. If they have shown a track record or history of not communicating on a regular basis, or even more so on a regular basis, and the owner's finding out facts about their house through somebody else, that's a damn good reason for an agent to be fired. I absolutely, because that means they do not care enough to follow through with what's. I've seen agents say, well, there was nothing to discuss. I go, good. Then you should have called them and told them there was nothing to discuss. And you should have said there was nothing to discuss because the MLS hasn't changed. The prices haven't changed. You still tell them that. You don't just sit there and assume that they think that nothing has changed. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes an agent makes. And it's a shame that that art is not perfected right now. And agents who actually think they're becoming good, and they are, but they don't have that step. That's going to be very hard for us to address academically from 3 or 4 years now that agents have not been trained to deal with those objections. So that's, watching our show, that's something that we try to pick out. And that is the academic side of me. That is the instructor side of me, is like, I know what it is all the time. I don't just look at the pieces of it. I don't just define the one market. I know how it works all the time. And the fact that we do this as a career, we know we have agents that have 20 or 30 years left in them, but they haven't seen this part. Yep. For my guys, and when I say guys, I mean my guys and my gals, we look at that stuff. We're telling them before. We're like, hey, you need to know. That's the difference between some of these. Well, it doesn't matter right now. At least you know.
Well, and as good as I do, the number one reason though that they fire their agents is like the home isn't selling. And we almost can be assured that the house is overpriced then in that time. It's either overpriced or it's a weird house.
That's right. Yeah. There's 2 reasons a house doesn't sell. Yes, we can argue that there's 3 or 4 more, but I'm telling you right now, 98% of the time, the house is too damn high. Yep. You can sit there all day and say it's the agent's fault. If that house is too high, there's no other agent that can sell it higher if the people have gone through it and said the same thing. And if it's a weird house, meaning it sits on a very weird location, maybe there's an overpass that's extremely loud, maybe it's a house that just is really close to another, there's something that somebody doesn't like about it. And if they don't like something about it, they're not going to pay the normal price for it. Now, right. The upside to that, all houses eventually sell. It's a fact. They do. It just might not be what you like for. That's why you have to listen to the real estate agent.
But that goes to setting expectations, because in that listing presentation, you have to tell them what they don't want to hear. Be like, hey, this only has 2 bedrooms. You're not going to have as many beds for that. Or this ugly overpass. That's going to be a problem.
It is.
So,
all right.
And they end up firing you. But they end up firing you and going to another agent who convinces them to drop the price to where you told them to. And then it's.
I'm glad you said that. I will admit that's one of the most betrayed type of things a seller can do. And you should be ashamed of yourself if you do it, because the karma, if that agent told you to lower it and you didn't, and you fired them, and you go get another agent, the other agent says you got to lower this, and you're like, oh, I'll go ahead and do it. And then you sell, you should be ashamed of yourself because you are basically betraying. I actually think that the other agent should be able to go back and say, hey, they were told and they didn't do that. Well, that would never happen.
Yeah.
But it is terrible. It is terrible because that's just not right. It happens all the time. God knows it's happened to me in my career. All right. I want to go ahead and give a quick thanks to our sponsors. Brent's going to run through those really quick. And when he's done, we're going to do a very simplistic observation of the net sheet so you could have gone through the whole thing, at least having your head what the idea is, okay?
Okay. All right, so we have our two sponsors today, Mr. Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. He is our go-to home inspector. We, of course, always give our clients a number of inspectors to choose from, but Martin is the inspector we prefer. He is always on time or early, finishes in a timely manner, gets the report to you the same day, and all reports are color-coded. Red for serious issues and blue for minor things to look at. You can always book him at bpginspections.com or reach him at 817-401-3240. And our second sponsor, or last but not least, is Mr. Greg Holdberg with Liberator Health Insurance. Your simple solution to affordable healthcare is here. Join the limit and control of your healthcare. Customize your healthcare plan to fit your healthcare and budget needs. Use any doctor or hospital without a penalty, in or out of network. Teladoc is included in all plans, no annual deductibles and no copay. Their deal of the week, a couple just got great coverage for $341 per month, including dental. As an independent agency, Liberator is committed to transforming healthcare in Texas through innovative healthcare plans that are affordable and rich in benefits. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker, at 214-886-4688, or visit him at liberatorhealthinsurance.com.
Outstanding. Love our sponsors. We appreciate you guys. This is always a great show to advertise on. We have a lot of people that watch the show. You know, we average anywhere from 400 to 600, even sometimes over 1,000 via archive. Most are up-and-coming real estate agents. Some are experienced agents. They watch to see what it is that we're doing. And a lot of times they take the advice that we have. So it's a very good show for any type of real estate vendor who is trying to get more business. Our vendors tend to do very well with advertising on our show. So we thank them for it. Great business partners. We don't just throw anybody on there. We have to actually believe in what it is that they do. So it's not a matter of them just saying, oh, I'll sponsor you, and they do that. We have to make sure that we like them as well. All right, last point. And you would think this is like, oh, wait a minute, the net sheet, this is going to be long. It's not. And that's why I'm going to make it really simple for you, because most of y'all are trained where someone pulls out this 6-page equation-built net sheet with every detail broken down that you literally would have had to have gone to Harvard to understand. And it is completely unnecessary. 21 years of doing this, and the net sheets that I've given people and what I'm about to give you, I don't think I've ever been off more than 1,000 to 1,500 either way, which is really good when you're looking at the amounts we're talking about by this equation I'm about to give you. All right, so it's as simple as this. You take the sales price and you're going to subtract the rest of these things I'm about to tell you. The first one is obviously the realtor cost, so whatever you're charging. If it's 6% and you're selling the house, or you think the house was going to sell for like $300,000, 300,000 times 0.06, okay? Because remember, you have to account for both sides. The second one are the title fees. It is customary that the seller typically pays for the title fees, even though right now they're not doing it because of the market. Most of the time, the seller pays for the title fees. Those title fees include an owner policy, some of the things that the title company does to get this transaction escrowed and moved through. And the estimate, this is the most important part of this, we always estimate it's about 1% of the sales price, and then we throw a plug number of about 500 or 600 for some incidentals in there.
And the home warranty.
Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you, that 1% and that plug basically is where most people go wrong. Because if you do a net sheet that's detailed, you break down all of those things that are in that 1%. Nobody gives a damn about the detail on that. They just want to know what the cost is going to be. Trust me when I say, do the 1% of the sales price plus the 400 or 500 and tell the seller up front, we're pretty sure you're going to be paying that. So sales price minus the realtor fees minus the title cost. All right. The next one should be the obvious. They have to minus, subtract whatever debt they have on the house. That's all the debt. Their loan, if they have a pool loan, if they have a home improvement loan, whatever it is, that needs to be subtracted. And then the last one needs to be whatever we estimate their taxes to be. You take all those and you subtract them away from the proposed sales price. That estimated, and it is an estimate, that estimate It's going to be pretty damn close, as long as the numbers they gave us were fairly accurate. Like if they give us a wrong payoff, then that number's going to be off by whatever that pay. If they tell us our taxes were wrong, they're going to be off by it. If they didn't tell us about some other lien they had, it's going to be off by that amount.
Well, we may be adding in the HOA fees, and if because of the new HOA amendment, if you don't know what we're talking about,
that number
you
might
need to give
have
us
to
a
go
call.
up. Yeah, that number might have to go up. And of course, if the sales price, if we're off on the sales price, that's going to have to be changed. I'll also give you another takeaway before we leave. You do a net sheet at the beginning, and you do a net sheet before they're about to accept a contract. This is a great takeaway. I am shocked how many brokers do not require their agents to do a net sheet right then and there before that person takes that offer. Do you know how many times in running my own firm that I've had an agent have their seller accept a contract where it said the buyer was going to be given $5,000 in closing costs, and they did not have that on the first net sheet. Mm-hmm. So they actually thought they were getting $5,000 more. And then when it came down to it, the agent says, well, look, you agreed. Yeah, but you didn't do the net sheet again. You actually have to dumb it down. You have to do it again. That's a huge takeaway from the show. Always do a net sheet before that seller signs.
Well, and it's a testimony to that net sheet formula that you use, because every time I have a listing, I always think, oh God, I hope the seller is going to net what I think. I hope, and I'm always nervous, and it's almost always dead on or off by a couple $100.
I've done it for so long that if it's off, I immediately go, their mortgage is off, or I know it had to be one of those two. And I have never been wrong on that. Yeah. If it's off, it has always been one of those. The other thing I noticed too is that sometimes if a title company didn't get a CDA and I am discounting, they just assume 6%. That's usually a good trigger that something was wrong as well. So, all right, look, nothing extremely detailed in there, but those two shows together should give you a much better feeling. Remember, I don't like the so detailed protocol as I do that. Hey, look, pay attention. Look at the common sense side. You want to learn. Do you ever have a choice of whether you're common sense smart or detailed smart? Believe me, you always want to be common sense smart. Common sense smart will get you out of almost anything. Street smarts only will get you out, or book smart will only get you out of so much. So we try to teach the other side of this, the common sense side, gets the people side of it, and we really believe it's the part of the business that makes this whole thing go round and round. Y'all have a great rest of the week. Enjoy getting to the summer. The selling season is going to continue to blow up. We are going to see you guys next week with another topic that will engage you, that will show you how to do this, because that's the whole purpose of the show. Thanks a lot. We will see you guys next Thursday.